What's up, coaches? I want to welcome you back to another episode of TMA with Tyler Gray. This is your morning after podcast where I try to sift through the rubble that is our weekly matchups. This is actually a special episode. I know you guys have been hearing it all week. I was bringing a special guest on, none other than the villain himself, Mr. Silas Miller. Silas, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. Good. Yeah, feeling good after a drubbing of USC today. It was beautiful. It was a very long trip in LA, but hey, when you win like that, yeah, it's a good feeling. So,
How'd it go? Did you expect it to be like that, or did it just kind of open up during the game?
it's not really what I expect. I was expecting probably another touchdown. Like I was expecting, like 60 to 15, around
Really?
there. Yep. So, a little underwhelming, but hey, the guys played well.
So let's look at it this way. So coming into the season, so we're just going to kick right off. We're not gonna dance through the tulips here. We're just going to go right into it. Eli, Sean, not so much me. I think I've showed you respect, even from the beginning. But when you chose Missouri, I think it's safe to say you were hit and miss.
Some
right?
doubters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in exhibitions, right? Because
Yeah.
Well, we had the preseason tournament.
Right.
You come up short in that, and then just some exhibition matchups, and then obviously Silas Gate, right? Like you tried to get out of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it feel now, sitting at 2-1 with two huge deficit wins coming into week 4?
Yeah, well, it's definitely something that's behind me. It's not something that I'm proud of the way I handled it. There was a time when it felt like nothing I could do was going to like help me win games, and I'm too competitive to like just allow that to happen. I've seen it happen like with schools that you were at,
Right.
and I've never been in that territory before, and I handled it in a way that I'm not proud of. But that's behind us because there was a point when I realized that like no one was gonna budge. So like I had to make it work, and I've done a lot. I've done a lot of practice. I played a lot of games, and it's no shock now. Like I turned things around, and it's not a shock now where I'm at. Like we figured it out.
Because they did. I think Sean and maybe even Eli. I don't want to speak for Eli, but I do think Eli was one of the guys that had you 3-7, 4-6 at best, and you're already sitting at 2-1 going into season into week 4.
After you beat me in week 1, Dad was like, "You're 3-7 at best," and I wanted to just laugh and like probably start a fight with him because
I was saying
ridiculous.
5-5 at worst.
Yeah, at worst. That's
At worst.
yeah, and that's probably still that's probably still my floor would be 5-5 just because of how good each team is.
Right.
But then again, there's 4 teams that have winning records, and so last year that wasn't the case. There was a lot of losing records,
Right.
because Eli and LSU was so dominant. But this year, there's like 4 teams. You have the 3-0, and you have 4 2-1s or 3 2-1s, and then there's like a few teams that stink. And that kind of reminds me of back when we had like Ian or Dave Fogel.
Mm-hmm. Me. I mean, you can say
yeah, and Dad.
me.
Or,
I was
Tyler,
falling on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like we're back into like the 2019, 2020 area of like a lot of winning records, and then a few that are just like, yeah, you know what I mean.
And I agree too. Like you said about Eli, like you go 8-2. If you have a team that goes 8-2, you got to do the math on that. Not everybody can go 8-2.
Right.
There's 6 of us, so
People have to lose the games. Yeah.
So I agree with you. You got one guy sitting at 3-0, and then 2 guys sitting at 2-1. So just the structure of this show. We'll get back to Silas's journey here in a second, but I do want to keep the structure right. So we just ended week 3. We just got the last matchup in week 3 done. Silas's Missouri squad took out Davies' USC team, and it was what did you call it? A drubbing?
A drubbing. Yeah, it was a drubbing.
It was. I love Davy. I'm always a fan of Davy. But let's just go through the scores for the week 3 matchup, Silas. So we'll start with Missouri. Missouri was coming in ranked. What were you ranked coming in here?
3.
You were at 3. So 3 Missouri, which the rankings have changed now, and we'll get to them at the end of the podcast. But 3 Missouri traveled to Los Angeles and took on number 5 USC. They won that matchup 52 to 15. 52 to 15. And so let's talk about that matchup in general, and then we'll move on to the other ones. And I just want to start with that one because it's so fresh in our minds. It happened today. It happened just a few hours ago, but it happened. I think the way I thought it would happen. I didn't think it would be such a crazy deficit. I didn't think it would be a blowout. But I seen Davey utilizing the game plan that you utilized, right? I thought Davey would try and slow you down by running, and that's not the case. He was just.
I think he wanted to go with me.
Right, he tried.
And no one's ever done that and like been successful. No one has ever, like, if you're gonna like go the full 9 yards with me and just throw, like, he knew the game plan for me. Like, I've been very vocal about throwing it 30, 40, 50 times. Like, that's what I do now. Like, that's what I'm gonna have to do with Missouri. And I ended up running it more than I expected. Right. So like, because I could, because like today I could do whatever I wanted. He went into the game like you said, like he used my game plan, and no one has ever been successful trying to outscore me. Like, right. It'll catch up. Especially, I feel like I can take care of the ball better than anyone too. So, yeah.
And I said that last Thursday too. I said if he was going to have a chance for victory, he's not going to be able to go like punch for punch with you.
Yeah.
That's not going to work out. That don't work out for most people. So it was crazy too because every time he showed signs of life, like he got a couple interceptions on you. Two of them, I think. Now I could be wrong. I don't know the.
No, that's right. Yeah, it was two.
But
today.
As soon as he threw interceptions, his very next throw was an interception. So you didn't let him ever recover.
Defense played well.
Right.
Yep, defense played well.
So where do you see him?
Davey?
Like what in the mental state? Like what do you see for this season for Davey? What do you see where he could improve or?
Yeah, no, I think at this point, I think there's 4 teams, and I think this is the year that we're in some uncharted territory because in my opinion, I think there's 4 teams that are overwhelmingly better. Like, I think, from what I've seen from Davey, now he's played the 3 best teams, so I don't know what he's going to look like against you. Right. I don't know what he's going to look like against Owen, but I can tell you that there's 4 teams that will handle Davey twice. So I think if we're going to give Davey the benefit of the doubt, I think it's 3 wins max, 2 wins minimum.
Right.
I think he can get 2 wins over Owen because right now it doesn't look like anybody's going to lose to Owen. Right. But it doesn't look like he's going to beat anyone in the top 4, so... maybe once, maybe he'll beat one of us once, but I'm saying 2 to 3 wins. It's gonna be a long one for Davey. So,
yeah. But to Owen, not to get off of Davey here because we got Owen's matchup. Here in a second.
Yeah, I did throw him under the bus.
Oh well, I mean, I just if you go back, Owen was struggling in 2019 too.
Yeah, you're right.
And when he turned it on and actually, he was doing like the whole thing I was trying to do, except he done it with better success. I was writing plays out. I had a notebook of like, okay, I'm going to use this. I'm going to run a 4-2-5 or I'm going to run a 3-3-5. Yeah. But he actually showed, he actually succeeded in doing that. And I think hearing all the negativity that he's getting, I think that's going to catapult him. If he's going to turn it around, he's going to turn it around now.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, and Owen is not one, like, sometimes I think, I don't know, to me it feels like sometimes we would stray, I think I've strayed away from, like, criticizing your teams.
Right.
And I don't know if that's, like, I feel like Owen does sometimes take the punches, like, because sometimes, like, I'll throw him under the bus. I always vote him 6th, it feels like, sometimes when he doesn't deserve it. But this year he does deserve it. But, yeah, no, I think I agree that he's doing everything in his ability to compete. And I think the criticism, I don't know if it's enough to get him to win games necessarily. He's going to take it to heart, and I know he's trying to do everything in his power. I just don't know if he has enough to win enough. Like, he could win 2 or 3 games. I just don't know if 5 games is in store for him at the moment. And I know it's a long season, but...
Right. I don't either. I think I would like to see him do better than I did in some of my struggling seasons, which has been more so than not. Like my 3-7 year at Cal, my 3-7 year at UK.
Oh yeah.
I would like to see him at least match that. He deserves it. He's a past champion. But I'm with you. I think his Florida State team wouldn't struggle. They wouldn't look as bad as they do right now if they wasn't in the season they're in. Because like you said, our top 4 teams, could win a championship in any other season.
Oh, absolutely.
That we've had so far, I feel.
Yeah. If you look at the roster, like if you look at the rating, the roster, all of like the good stuff on paper, like Florida State is like way better than any UCF team you had. Mm-hmm. But the year UCF was in matches up better for Owen's success, rather than like. And I think there's a pattern because the blackout year he was at Iowa State struggled, then last year he was at Utah struggled, and these were like teams that were rated pretty highly, and then now Florida State's rated pretty highly. He goes there, they're struggling again. So I don't know if he's gonna turn it around, but like it feels like maybe like an underdog kind of team is what he needs. You know what I mean? Because all these teams are very highly rated. All the players, all the rosters are like on paper they look good. I just don't know if he is utilizing that correctly because everyone else is utilizing, except for Davey, is utilizing it correctly. Because
Davey should have run more today.
Yeah,
I've seen that, and again, like I said, hats off to Davey. He's went further into this thing than I have yet, and he's been in the league. This is his second year, really, if you don't count the blackout. So who am I to say anything? But to watch him play you, because he's always been the guy in my ear whispering, "Hey, slow down." Like when I was playing you, he was like, "Hey, you got this, slow down." And even when I was playing Owen, I made a couple dumb drives, even though I was up kind of high at the time. He was like, "Hey, go conservative. You're good. You got this." So I want to see Davey do good, but it was frustrating to see him utilize the game plan he was using. But at the same time, man, I know he's a busy guy, and I think a lot of his life outside of our league might have. I don't want to give no excuses away from your win. I mean, no matter what you're going through, 52-15.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see him do good, and him and Owen too. But like you said, it's just so the top four is crazy because I even think Eli's sitting right now at 4. We're going to answer a lot of questions when he plays Sean next week. But I think Eli's Michigan team will beat LSU from last year. I honestly do.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. I was actually talking to someone else about this. The thing is, I don't know because the loss to me is something that LSU didn't do. You know what I mean? Like, they lost 2 games, and the one was in the snow, and, like, I don't blame...
Did he beat you?
He beat me twice.
Twice last year.
Yeah, and they were both close. I think the second one he actually beat me by 2 touchdowns. But the one was in, like, triple overtime. But they didn't lose to me. And, like, I obviously hold myself on a very high standard, and that's the only thing that I've kind of compared it to. If you compare it to other things, I'm sure, yes, Michigan looks better. But, like, I always look back, like, did he beat me? Yes, he beat me twice. It's actually the only 2 times he's ever beaten me.
I want to point out the elephant in the room, though. Like I said, I mean, I know me and you are rivals. At the end of the day, though, it's all love. Is Blake Corum better than Justice Hill?
Well, it's week 3.
From what you've seen.
He looks better.
I agree. I think he's the best running back we've had. I do. And that ain't nothing. That ain't putting your teams down. I mean, it's just...
Well, I don't know. Like, you'd have to... like, if you put him in... Like, I don't know. If you, like, put them against each other, if you put Oklahoma State's team on the field with Michigan and he just ran every play, I think Hill would have more yards. I do. I just don't think Michigan's defense is good enough to stop him.
Maybe. But I don't think Eli's running defenses with Michigan's been... I think it's his passing defense is what he struggled with week 2 against you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one because, like...
Because he runs straight to the outside and shoots upfield. That's hard to do in our league.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Hill did. And, you know what, like, the thing, if you want to, like, side with Coleman, that makes sense to me because what he's doing, numbers-wise, matches Hill, and it's on a different difficulty. So I'll give you that.
Yeah. Because,
like, what he's doing is matching what Hill did. Even, like, the scheme that Eli's drawing up is very similar to what Oklahoma State had.
Yeah.
But it is on a hard.
Well, let's get into that then, Silas. Actually, just to keep the structure of the show, because we're away from the game today. That is what it is. You tore through USC. Now let's move to the matchups that took place on Thursday, and we'll start with the second game. Would be Michigan defeating FSU. Eli was sitting at 4.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still sitting at 4. So he's not changed. So 4. Michigan at home took out Owen's Florida State team, who was sitting in 6th. 56-22, so very similar to the matchup that transpired today between you and Davey.
Yeah.
The same struggles, right? Like, I'll tell you what worries me about Owen, too. And Owen, I love you. I'm not putting you down. I know, trust me. I've got to speak facts here. This show don't mean nothing. There's 2 differences in the blowout between Owen and Eli and the blowout between you and Davey. It was Davey's game plan. In my opinion, between Eli, it was Owen's skill. And I don't say that. And Owen's a past champion. I'm not putting Owen down. Owen has just as much skill as anybody here. But in that game that I witnessed, it was Owen's skill because he tried everything. Davey never really tried to run the ball against you. He stuck to what he stuck with, and it just time. What's that saying? What's that saying from Albert Einstein? Like the only dumb thing you can do in life is to keep repeating the same mistakes and expect different results. I'm sure the wording's not perfect, but that's what I felt like with Davey. With Owen, I just felt like, man, I was there with him. Like my heart was broke for him because he did go outside our games, like he did take the time. Like you even heard Megan say it. Like he'd been in front of the TV like through the week. I don't know how much exact time he spent, practicing, but I know he practiced. Yeah. And that's terrible to come up
that short
with that much preparation.
It's like, it's like he got on the starting line and then like tripped and couldn't get up. You know what I mean? Like it never got off to like Michigan. Yeah.
He threw a pick his first play.
Yeah.
His first play was a pick.
Yeah, it wasn't good. That's what I'm saying. Like he just tripped off the gun. It's like when you start, like in Mario Kart when you like shoot off the engine shoots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the only thing I'll say about that is like the only apples to oranges in this scenario is the fact that, like, first of all, I kind of expected Michigan to like bounce back. Like they got handled. Like I handled them too. But they for them to come back at home, like Florida State had to travel to Ann Arbor.
Right.
While Davey had me out there. Like I had to go all the way out there and I smacked him too. That's like, I know Dad is the biggest proponent of like it's hard to win on the road. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I think like if you just want to we could talk about Owen for hours because it's just there's so many little things that is creating a big problem. Like he'll get a first down and then he'll like Travis fumbles or he'll throw a nice pass but the next play it's an interception. Like once he starts to get in the rhythm, boom, they get shot down. And that's just a part of I don't know if it's totally Owen or if it's Owen and this team. Sometimes you just gel with like a certain team.
Right. And you have confidence when you put the ball in the air.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so maybe that is Owen's deal, right? Like because Owen gets overlooked more than me, and he's had 10 times more success than me.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it. I'll be transparent. He's had 10 times more success than me, but he still gets overlooked. And I think that's just because he's nature. He's got such a good-hearted nature. But maybe, because in the podcast I released leading up to his game, I spent a lot of time talking about how I want to see him get back to, like, doing his homework before these matchups. And then he does that, and then you see the result of that. So maybe he just needs to tell us to go fly a kite. And he needs to stick to that game plan where he is, like, trying to – because he almost mimics – I know I've said this before, too. I don't want to beat a dead horse. But he almost mimics your dad's play style.
Yeah.
He looks up to your dad's play style a lot. That's, almost like a protege.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, he's run and gun, like, grinding it up the middle. If it's third and long, he's going to pass. So I always thought his issue with that was he was so easy to read. He was so easy to neutralize. Mm-hmm. But maybe he just needs to tell us to fly a kite, and he needs to do his thing.
I agree because I think Owen is in a peculiar situation where he struggles. Like if he didn't mimic what Dad is doing in Happy Valley, like he would struggle because I think there's a few coaches, and I kind of came up with this philosophy where there's 3 coaches that love to throw the ball and there's 3 coaches that love to run the ball. And one of them was Eli. Eli at LSU ran the ball amazing. And
Emory, is that who he had?
Emory, yes, the Heisman winner. And this year he's got Corm. So Eli is actually my philosophy where me, Eli, and Davey are the throwers, and Tyler. Well, I don't know.
Because I've got a blend. I mean, I get what you're saying there. I love to run too, but I think almost I'm kind of in between.
Yeah.
You know, I do love to run.
You've been in air raid before.
Right. Oh,
yeah. Definitely. That's where that came from. Because, like, this came years ago, back when you were, like, California. You were like, I'm just going to throw the ball. Like,
had to.
Yeah, it was, like, 35 times a game. And that's... Yeah, so... If Owen didn't do that, I don't know if he... Like, that was his way of competing. Because he struggles to see the field. And, like, that was always his way of maintaining possession, scoring touchdowns, keeping people off the field. Like, that's where, like, if he didn't mimic what Dad's doing, I think he would struggle, and I think it would start to catch up to him. But my dad made a good point because he said that Owen cannot win a game if he throws it 30 times. Like, Owen, that's what I'm saying. Like, he has to run the ball. And he's actually strayed away from that. If you look statistically, he's actually strayed away from how much he used to run the ball. He's got a good running back. Like, he's got to start utilizing, like, holding blocks, like, getting in the right formation to give Benson a chance because he's got to start running the ball. He can't pass. Like, I don't even think Travis is good enough to pass that many
Apparently
times.
not, too, because I brought that up. Like, I've seen a lot of Owen's struggles. I've seen that. Like, a lot of his passes where he was planted, he was in the pocket, and they were still missing.
Yeah, and it's like looks can be deceiving because Travis is, like, technically a good quarterback. Well, the year he won a championship, he didn't even know who his quarterback was. Like, Killens was so dominant because it was focused on Killens. Like, Darrell Mack and Brandon Wimbush shared snaps. They hardly threw the ball. And they threw it enough to win, but it was a run game. Like, it's like Iowa football. It was that's how it was. And like
kind of like Penn State from 2020. I mean, your dad was very run heavy too.
Yeah, and it was because if you look at last year, Dad struggled. And he had C.J. Stroud. Well, C.J. Stroud's technically better than Sean Clifford was. But who had more success, Sean Clifford or C.J. Stroud? It's because Dad doesn't like to... Like, Dad shouldn't be throwing the ball 25 times. He just shouldn't be doing that. Right. And that's what he did because he had those receivers. He had that quarterback. It's just not what they do. Right. And sometimes they, like, think that, well, maybe I should... Because, like, they see what Eli and I have done. They see what you and I have done. Right. And... No, they gotta stick. Everyone's got to stick to their own game.
To their own.
Depending on the roster, and then sometimes you need to pick a roster that might suit you like that. Right. Like, why has Wisconsin never been in the league? Why has Iowa only been in the league once? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, those are the teams Owen should be going to.
Right.
I think a top 10 school. I think that doesn't even matter. I'm gonna go to the playoffs with Missouri, and they're not even ranked. Right. So LSU was not even ranked last year. You know what I mean? So does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense actually. I thought our podcast would be a lot of back and forth. Negative, but yeah. A lot of insight. Like, yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying. So moving on from that game, let's talk about the most anticipated matchup as far as last week. Now, your most anticipated matchup going into week 4, which we'll get into the schedule right when we close, is obviously going to be Eli and Sean. That's gonna that's gonna be that's electrifying. I'm not gonna miss it for nothing.
Oh yeah.
If I can't be around, y'all gonna have to reschedule it. Which I'll be around, but just saying, I'm really looking forward to that. But we had 2 undefeated teams, undefeated coaches. Myself at Ohio State had to travel to Happy Valley to take on Sean, who was sitting at number 2, undefeated as well. How did that play out to what you thought?
Yeah, well, how exciting are these 1-2 matchups? Like, these are always the best time of the year. Like, I swear sometimes it's more exciting than real college football. Like, these 1-2s are something special. And it early on it lived up to the hype. So I was expecting more of you both score early and then it's kind of back and forth. Maybe one of you throws a pick, someone scores, and then someone responds. I was thinking like 14-14 going into maybe the end of the third quarter, and then I thought that maybe Dad was going to pull away just because of like the home environment. Right. Maybe McCord as a young quarterback makes a mistake or two, but that's just not what happened at all. I think Henderson had a heck of a game.
Oh yeah.
I think Nick Singleton could not get off to any rhythm. Like Aller couldn't get into a rhythm. I think the Ohio State defense played well. Proctor played well. Yeah. It's just not what I was personally expecting. But hey, that's why you play it because like Ohio State showed up and they continue to show up, and you know hats off to you because it's a lot of what you're drawing up over there and yeah, it's.
Well, it feels good, man. I appreciate you saying it. Does feel good to contend.
Oh yeah.
Because I've spent so many, and I would never, like I said when we've dropped these podcasts before, or just us talking as family, like in the postseason or the off season rather, I will always take blame. Nobody held a gun to my head. The same thing I told you with Missouri. You know, nobody held a gun to your head and made you go to Missouri.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nobody made me go to Cal. Nobody made me go to Kentucky. I actually drafted Alabama last year. Who would have known how that worked? You know, I mean, it coulda, shoulda, woulda at this point. Who knows? But still, though, struggling sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear all this, like, look at all this, what we have going on right now with like media for our input stream. It's probably never since 2020. It's probably never been better.
Oh, absolutely.
And the hype's never been better. But to be on that's why my heart goes out to Davey and Owen, because to be on the outskirts of that top 4 while all this is going on, sucks, man. Because you know they want to feel part as well. And so no, I appreciate that, man. Being at number 1 right now feels good. But I've got 7 games left to play.
Oh yeah, and one of them's me. So
yeah, and that's gonna be tough. You had me in the first matchup. You know, it really showed that I can pull through at the end and like make a comeback and make the adjustments. But I would be crazy to think somebody like your Eli's or your Sean's when we meet again, or of course you when we meet in week 6, or even Davey next week. It would be crazy for me to think at this point that somebody's not going to come around in one of these weekly matchups and punch my ticket. It's going to happen. It's how I'm going to respond when that happens. And that's why I wanted to ask you, how do you think your dad responds? Because that aura, once you lose, we were both 2-0. Once you lose a real, and you see it in UFC, you see it in the NBA, you see it in real life sports, man. Once you lose and you lose that aura of invincibility, because he was what, 7-game win streak with Penn State?
Yeah.
Once you lose that, sometimes it can be a downhill slope from there. So how do you think he responds to it?
Yeah, no, and I think the way he responds will be kind of similar to the way I responded, because I lost right away, and I feel like I played better since.
Right.
Like, I definitely, like, statistically, it's been a lot more dominant.
Right.
Like I think I was a little bit more uptight against you. And losing made me realize that I just need to play my kind of ball and, like, not really give a crap. Like, I'm just going to throw the ball around. Right. And it's worked.
Not to cut you off, but I'm glad you said that, too, because that's how I felt when I played you. Yeah. I felt comfortable with Sean.
Yeah,
Happy Valley. I felt very comfortable with Owen. My running game in both those matchups. But your dad, if you remember, your dad was like, y'all were just throwing prayers out there. I didn't expect y'all to throw some me. I felt like we were playing very conservative.
Oh, it felt that way, too. But it also felt like it was so... That game, to me, like, I don't even know what... It was so weird because it felt like I was holding so much in the playbook.
Right.
But it also felt like I was throwing some stuff around that was, like, risky. You know what I mean? Yeah,
me too.
We were both in the same boat. And it went to 3... Did it go to... It went to overtime.
It went to the second overtime.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Something like that.
Second. No, just the one, right? Because you went for it in overtime and didn't get it, and then I ended up...
Yeah, it was one. Okay, yeah. So that's what I responded to that. We both have responded to that game in a positive light. And I think that's what Dad's going to do, because he's the one that keeps preaching. All you got to do is get in.
Right.
All you got to do is get in. So, like, that game's behind him now.
Right.
He's going to go... Who's he got this week? Eli?
He's got Eli.
Yeah, so. That's a one that, like, it makes your stomach churn a little bit just because of how dominant last year was. Like, that was historical.
Yeah.
So, like, when I played him, I was a little bit like... Ugh. Like, that's the most nervous I've ever been to play Eli in my life. Like, no doubt. Like, I was even more nervous to play him than I was to play Davey in the semifinal last year. Which is so... Because I've been playing in the playoffs for years now. But he'll have some nerves, but there's no pressure. He's got Owen... He's got Owen again. He's got a lot of games. Like, Dad will do enough to get in, and I truly believe that, and he'll respond well. He's the most mature coach by far.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. He's very weathered, very seasoned.
Oh yeah.
So he's got Eli, which is a tough match. I don't want to play Eli.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest with you. Am I going to be ready? I'm going to be prepared. I hope so. I don't want to play him.
Yeah. Well, Dad's competitive. I've noticed this with the scheduling is like. His rivals have been put at the end of the season. So, like, one of his rivals is Eli. So he's playing in week 4, and that's, like, a big one between Michigan and Penn State. And then he's got me. Like, the end of his schedule is tough. So he's going to have to win the Davies, the Owens. And he's going to have to steal one from you just to feel good about where he's at. Because if you're the 4 seed, that's great. You don't really haven't been lucky enough. Sometimes I'm the 1 seed. And the 4 seed's actually beating me, but, like, no one wants to play the 1 seed. So Dad needs to keep winning games. Like, everyone needs to keep winning games.
I guess it all depends too, not to cut you off, but what if I'm the 1 seed and I've got no experience in postseason?
Yeah.
You might want to be that 4th seed.
It's interesting.
Because you don't know how I react. And everybody knows those doubleheader postseason games that we play towards the end of the season. And I don't think it's going to work out that way this year, or at least I hope not, because we've been so we've got our games in consecutively, right? I mean, for the most part. We got 2 triple headers in week 1 and 2, and then you and Davey played today. And, you know, the other 2 matchups happened on Thursday, how they were originally scheduled. So it might not be, but if you look at me when there's no pressure, but if I'm in the postseason, there's pressure.
Yeah,
so
and one thing I've learned is that the pressure actually starts to mount. Like, the competitive like, it starts to fizzle. Like, it starts to get worse by the end of the season. So, like, if you start out 3-0, like, I've been there before. I've started out 3-0, and it starts to get a little tricky. Like, all you got to do is win 2 more.
Right.
All you got to do is win 2 more, and you're in. Like,
but it's still 2 more.
Yes,
You've got to win. That's not easy.
Especially in this league with 6 guys that are all very competitive. It's difficult. But thankfully this year, I think there's, like we've talked about this already, there's a few guys that you know you might grab 2 wins from. But the pressure starts, especially when you're at the top, it starts a little bit earlier. Like, it feels like, I don't know. And everyone has pressure because then there's the guys who are really trying to get that 4th and 3rd and 4th spot. But there's always pressure, pressure. And then, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where you're at. Like, if you do end up making the playoff, which you're on pace, and there's no denying that, it's interesting to see how you treat that game. Because, like, that might equal how you felt in that first game. Like, there is a different feeling. Like, it feels like it's not even the same game. It's like EA like morphed into this. It's weird. It's very weird.
I can see that.
Weird things happen. 21-0 comebacks happen.
The same way around week 1, right? Because you want to get started on the right foot. And I looked at week 1 against you, felt, and it might have been the level of, and I ain't putting the other guys down by no means. Playing you's tough. I'm not here to pump butterflies up your hind end. It's tough. But week 1, I felt so much more like every play mattered. And that's a crappy feeling.
I know.
When you're 1st and 10, and it's like, oh, I'm going to run it here, but what if I lose 2 or 3 yards?
Yeah.
I can't run it again.
Right.
How am I going to put it in the air? I don't want to throw a pick.
Which is so funny because, like, the game I just played today mattered so much more. But it felt like I was playing so freely. It's such a weird dynamic, but it's
we've created something special with this league.
Absolutely.
Like, it has started with something, like, just us family. You know, we love playing the game anyway. And it's become something
absolutely
special. So I'm glad you guys are a part of it. I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm proud to be a part of it. Before we wrap up, Silas, I usually do this myself, but I've never had a special guest on this show. Silas is the first. He's the first champion in 2018. He's the first guest on TMA. So I want to let you do the predictions. I don't want to do them. I might comment on if I feel.
Yeah.
So let's start week 4 matchups. We'll start with we'll go from the bottom of the list up. So we'll start. No, actually, let's start at the top because my favorite one's at the bottom. I'm looking forward to that game more than my own, honestly. Number 1 OSU is traveling to Los Angeles. They're sitting at 3-0. They're playing number 5 USC. You played Davey today.
Yeah.
You've played me in week 1. How do you see that matchup going?
Okay, so from what I've seen so far, and like, you got to remember that Davey's got 3 road games, because if this is his 3rd road game or 3rd home game of the first half of the season, that means he's gonna have 3 on the road. But this is gonna be his 3rd home game, and he's 0-2. So it doesn't like, and this is always a tricky one because the Coliseum isn't the greatest environment. Like, the field is very far away from the stadium. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, the fans are far away. It wasn't a difficult atmosphere today.
So you don't think that atmosphere really
Not at all.
Like, don't really go over to the difficulty of playing?
Oh, no, nothing like you're going to see those 3 up north. I'm talking Ohio State, Penn. Like, those stadiums, it's ridiculous. Like, your controller's about to fall out of your hands. Like,
that's how it was different with me and within Sean's game. My controller almost like jumped down my hands.
Yeah, there's nothing like there. But so I'm gonna like with that, like, it just wasn't an issue. I think you're gonna be very focused. Like, you want to be 4-0 going into the game. Like, how beautiful would that be? Like, how could I not predict that? So, like, I'm gonna go. You're gonna have an easy win. I think all you gotta do is maintain Williams,
right,
and react to how quickly he gets the ball out of his hands. you'll get the job done it'll be more than 2 touchdowns in my opinion, because it's time to stop doubting Ohio State. So
put a score on it. Put an actual.
Okay, I'll do. Their defense is atrocious, so I'll go 49, and then I'll be generous and give them 21 points.
49-21.
So that's a 28-point victory.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's 1 versus 5. There's a gap. So
I've got to beat. Now again, I do appreciate that. That's awesome. But as run heavy as I've been, and I want to be. I know that in my back pocket I can throw if I have to, right?
Yeah.
Because that's my first love, throwing. I'm gonna try, like you said, obviously be focused, but I'm gonna run as long as he allows me to run. I'm gonna run.
Yeah.
So I think I'll win 28-10.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, I think the thing with him, like the run game, is not like it's not my strong suit. So you didn't see that today, but he struggled with Singleton, he struggled with Corum, he'll struggle with Henderson. So,
Right.
yeah, that makes sense to me. That's probably more of a accurate score.
Right.
But I think today it was like so easy that it just makes me kind of doubt like USC's abilities. But okay, so then my matchup at Florida State.
So you got Missouri sitting at 2-1, and are you traveling to Florida State?
Yeah.
So you're traveling to 0-3 Florida State, 0 squad. So
Yeah, I think.
I want so bad for Owen to show signs of life, but that's a tough matchup.
Yeah, no, if I were to, in my mind, I see like a 70 bomb.
Really?
Yeah. I think, I see something like that. I'm ready for something like that. Like, I've seen Eli do it in the past. Mm-hmm. I've seen you drop 63 before. Right. Like, I'm ready to have that kind of game. Yeah, so I think in my mind, I'm seeing like a 70, and like if you have that many possessions, I'm sure he'll score on a few of them. So like 70-28 or something like that. But on a realistic aspect, I see like a 56-7.
I'm gonna say 49-17.
49-17. Yeah.
And so, Owen, I love you. It's just what we're working off of now. We got our man Eli with Michigan behind the camera. Eli, what's your take? It'll pick up on here for that game.
What game?
Step in here with us. Got another special guest, people. This is Eli Miller with Michigan, last year's champion with LSU.
Yes.
What's your take?
On what game?
On well, let's let Eli run through them all too. OSU and USC. We'll start with that.
Ohio State, USC. I think Tyler definitely wins, but not by much. I think it's a wake up call.
Kind of like the Penn State.
I feel that.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel that. That's okay. The game we were just talking about. Silas with Missouri's traveling to Florida State. I think it's going to be another drubbing.
I think it's a blowout. I don't think it's 70. I could have scored 70 last week, but I dove at the goal line and I let the clock run out. So you're welcome, Owen. But I think Silas, like what you said, about 49 or 50 to about like maybe 17 or 21.
Okay. Now, the matchup. We got to get to you at the end. This is going to just me and you. You start it. Penn State, are they traveling
You
to
don't
Michigan?
have to predict this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go back behind the camera.
Okay.
Eli Miller, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's a big one. I'm excited for this. This is like watching a good UFC fight coming up.
It's like a heavyweight fight.
Is Penn State traveling to Ann Arbor, or is Ann Arbor going to Happy Valley?
Is this like? Did you get it correct? Like when you wrote those down, did you put like? Did you put who's home and who's away?
No, I didn't look into that. That's what I was going to ask you. I didn't look.
Let me check.
Yeah, and check the Mizzou game too. I might be at home. I actually don't know. Well, he was just at Ann Arbor. Florida State was. Yeah, check that.
That's an interesting one, man. I'm telling you, Penn State, Michigan.
Have you said anything?
Heavy
I
hitters.
think the game should be in Happy Valley. You've been playing at home like the only game you've had at on the road was me.
Did you say anything?
It should be like, do you have like the things I sent, like all the schedules?
You can scroll down, go to like the photos in the group, and scroll down till you see somebody's schedule.
I can look.
While they're looking, guys, I do want to make an announcement. Week 6, me and Silas play again, and I want to do something special for the podcast, for the morning before preview and prediction show we always do. I want to do a head-to-head. I'm going to take some time at the beginning to preview all matchups, but I'm going to have Silas back. Eli's going to film it, and we're going to do a head-to-head interview because that's going to be, hopefully by week 6, we're going to rack up some more wins, and that's going to be a good interview sitting down with two of the, the man that needs no introduction and then myself. So, okay, so they got the matchup. It's at Happy Valley?
Yes, and it's at Missouri, so that might get worse too.
Ooh, so Owen's traveling to you again right after traveling from Ann Arbor. Jeez, man. Can we give Owen a break? He's a newlywed.
Yeah, okay, and then, so it's in Happy Valley. That's what I thought. Okay, this is what I'm going to predict. I think I told you yesterday, or was it today? I think I told you today that whoever's home in this matchup will win, like, each time.
Yeah, you did.
I think I'm going to 180 that, because I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be low scoring, just because of what Dad does to a game. I
don't know. It's tough. I mean, not, like I said, not to cut into your. If it's low scoring, it's going to favor Sean.
I know.
That's tough. It really is tough, man. That's a money-making game. If we were gambling, folk, I would put money on that because that is.
It's going to be a game-winning field goal. That's what I'm seeing. It's going to be a game-winning field goal. And unfortunately, it's going to be Michigan. Like, I have a feeling.
Michigan. Put a final score on it. Put a number on it.
24-21.
24-21.
Which is bland. I know. Okay. Maybe like 25-22. Is that a little bit better?
25-22, 24-21. Yeah. I got you. This is my take. And I know one of the coaches is in the room with me, and it's all love, but Eli struggles when you take. He's like Vitor Belfort. That's how I was looking. Just stay with me here. I'm always going to UFC. Vitor Belfort, man, in the early 2000s was, quote unquote, I said this on the show the other day, hell on wheels. Mm-hmm. If you let him get going, and that's not nothing. That's why I think that's your best win this season so far. Was your drubbing of Michigan.
Well, I think so too.
Yeah, it was like two heavy hitters going at it, so your head should be held way high coming out with that victory. I think that was the most impressive thing you've done. I've told people before, Silas is going to prove a lot of people wrong. That was one of those games.
It was so big as an 0-1 team, too.
Oh, yeah. 0-1, and then to go in there and do that. But here's the thing. If Eli does his game, if he does his thing, you're screwed if you allow him to do that. Mm-hmm. Even though you all went tit for tat, you still stopped him, in a sense. If you go back and watch the game, you still stopped him.
The fumble at the beginning. Yeah.
But now, so Eli is, he's just a tough customer if he gets going with his offense. The moment you take that away from him, you take his whole psyche away from him. And I honestly feel in my heart that's what Sean's going to do.
Yeah.
I think Sean is going to rid him of what's made Eli look so incredible over the last 2 seasons, going back to LSU.
Yeah.
I think Sean's going to win this game 28-17. He is actually going to cause Eli, because if Eli's not a field goal kicker, he don't like to. If he's in a position where he can go for it, he's going to go for it. Same with you. You don't like to kick field goals.
Yeah.
You don't like to settle for that. I think that's going to be the telltale. I think it's going to be a very close first half game. Sean's going to control the clock. I think the moment that Eli has to settle in the red zone for a field goal, it's downhill for him there. I'm going to say 28-17.
I like it. I like it because you know what? I just realized that Eli doesn't necessarily have an impressive win yet, especially because of what we saw today.
Bro.
It was a 17-point win against Davie.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I guess I've now started to see Eli doesn't necessarily have an impressive win with Michigan, and the only game he has, they struggled badly. And the moment we can't trust McCarthy in a big game, is when we'll realize that Michigan is not last year. Because Daniels last year was one of the most underrated players of all time because Emory was so good, but when Emory was taken away, he could throw it with Daniels. So, the moment we can't trust McCarthy in a big game, or whenever he plays Penn State, that's a big game. And it's in Happy Valley. Well, I like it. Man, I don't want to flip my pick now, but what you're saying makes sense because he's beaten Florida State bad, and he beat USC bad.
Yeah.
So is everyone else so far.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I think Sean took it the wrong way when me and you, after the matchup between me and him. But it's true, Sean's. You can only play who you play.
Yeah.
You can only play who you have on your schedule that week.
Mhm.
But Eli's not beat anybody right now who's got to win.
no.
Sean hasn't either. But I do think Sean is seasoned. I do not see what Eli's done. And Eli's seasoned too. I see him over there like, well, he's very seasoned too. But I'm just talking.
You can only go off of what you have.
Yeah.
And what we have so far is a guy who played competitive. Well, he didn't even play you competitively at home. Dad didn't. Ah, gosh.
That's true.
Ugh. What I'm saying, what I think, if you go 2 weeks, I think you're going to beat Eli. I know is it in Ann Arbor? Do we know?
Yeah, I've got to travel week 5 to Ann Arbor. He's got to come week 10 to me.
What you have beaten the two guys that are breathing down your neck, you've beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And no one else can take that away from you. So the moment you step into the ring with him, like, you should beat USC.
Right.
And if you don't, maybe that'll give us, like, maybe that'll make us blink a little bit.
Right.
But if you're 4-0, and I know we've moved on to the next week, but if you're 4-0, like, you deserve every prediction in the world because
Right.
you beat, like, every team that's
Be a
breathing down
telltale.
your neck in those rankings is
But-
you beat. Yeah.
But who's to say I can control Eli like you did? I think the telltale, you're solidified it too,
Yeah.
by all means, and you could be at 1.
Yeah,
I'm never gonna throw shade at what I've done. What I won, it was fair and square. But let's be honest, it's one of those games you had me down. You had me down by 14 in the 4th quarter.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
hard to come back from in this league. I was fortunate enough to get the victory. Eli and Sean, that's why I love that matchup because that is a telltale.
I
Who
agree.
wins that matchup is the telltale. And it's so competitive, man. Like, I'm going to be popcorn over on the side of the sofa, just like...
Yeah, and that deserves a pizza. Like, we deserve to go get
For
a
sure,
pizza.
man. That's
Yeah.
game day, too. But, hey, we got to wrap this up. I was expecting me and you to feud. I'm sure
Yeah.
that'll come week 6. But, man, I appreciate you coming on and shedding some light on this because you really touched on some things from a different angle that I wouldn't have hit. So, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Silas,
Thanks for having me.
Eli, thank you for filming. And, hey, everybody else in the league, Owen, Davey, Sean, we love you guys, man. You guys are what makes this so special. We look forward to week 4 matchups. If you are towards the bottom of the 6, Davey and Owen, keep your head up, man. 7 games is a long time.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing. I think appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
This has made the league better. The atmosphere, the culture, it's getting better every single day. And a lot of trash talk, but I'll
Exactly.
double up on that.
And again, I told you guys this before we started filming. This is my give back to you guys because it's easy for me to go out of state for work, after the past 4 or 5 years, and just like I hope Silas drops something today. I really want.
Oh yeah.
And Eli, he's always been filming stuff, and like even back in the day, you remember he used to film all the highlights.
Uh-huh.
Like we've come a long way. So this is me giving back to you guys, and it's something that I promise I will keep moving forward, even if I am 2-8 by the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah. Let's remember, we make this important. Without all of us, and it don't matter if you're 0-3, if you're 3-0. Without all of us, this don't mean diddly squat, man. So it's all love at the end of the day. This is another episode of the Morning After podcast, and I look forward to seeing you guys week 4. Silas, thank you again, buddy.
Yes, thank you. Go Tigers.